A Werewolf Shifter Romance, written by Amelia Hart. Chapter 1. Hidden Scents. The steam rising from the massive copper pot carried the rich aroma of rosemary and thyme through the packhouse kitchen. Autumn haze stirred the stew with practiced precision, her movements fluid despite the early hour. 5 a.m. had become her sacred time, the only moments when the kitchen belonged entirely to her, before the chaos of feeding over 200 pack members began. She paused, closing her eyes as she inhaled the familiar scents of her domain. Garlic simmering in olive oil, fresh bread rising in the ovens, the earthy smell of root vegetables waiting to be chopped. This kitchen was her sanctuary, her fortress, the place where she had carved out a life from nothing 4 years ago. 4 years since she had returned to this territory, unrecognizable from the woman who had fled in shame. The Omega who had left had been soft, curved, with naturally honey-blonde hair that caught the light and skin that had never known true hunger. The woman who returned was angular, hardened by months of surviving as a rogue, her hair now a dark chestnut brown that she maintained religiously. 15 kilograms lighter, bearing small scars from malnutrition that had permanently altered her natural scent. She had walked through the packhouse gates, knowing that no one would recognize her. No one, except perhaps him. But Alpha King Rex Coldridge rarely ventured into the kitchens, and when he did, Autumn made sure to keep her head down, her eyes averted, her presence as insignificant as possible. She moved to the prep station where mountains of vegetables awaited her attention. Her knife work was swift, methodical, the blade singing against the cutting board in a rhythm that had become second nature. Carrots fell into perfect coins, onions into precise dices, celery into uniform strips. Cooking was poetry in motion, a dance she had mastered through necessity and perfected through passion. The memory tried to surface, as it did every morning at this hour. A masquerade ball 4 years ago, elaborate masks hiding faces, the scent of night-blooming jasmine in the air. She pushed it down, buried it deep where it couldn't hurt her. That night belonged to someone else, a foolish young Omega who believed in fairy tales. Autumn glanced at the clock. 5:30. Oliver would still be sleeping in their modest quarters, curled up with his favorite stuffed wolf, unaware that his entire existence was built on secrets and careful lies. At 3 years old, he was too young to understand why he couldn't play with the other pack children during the day, why he had to stay hidden with Mrs. Chen, their human babysitter, until the sun went down. The kitchen door swung open, interrupting her thoughts. Maria, one of the morning prep cooks, bustled in with her usual cheerful energy. "Morning, Autumn. That stew smells divine already. You trying to spoil the pack again?" Autumn smiled, the expression feeling more natural now than it had 4 years ago. "Just making sure they're well fed. A hungry pack is a dangerous pack." "Truth. Though I swear some of them would eat cardboard if you seasoned it right." Maria tied her apron and moved to her station. "You hear the Alpha King's been making more rounds lately? Isabella mentioned he came by the dining hall twice last week." Autumn's knife stilled for a fraction of a second before resuming its steady rhythm. "I wouldn't know. I focus on cooking, not gossip." "Course you do." Saint Autumn, dedicated to her craft. Maria's tone was fond rather than mocking. "Still, word is he's been restless. Victoria Thornberry's been pushing harder for that political marriage, and the council's getting antsy about the succession." The mention of Victoria Thornberry made Autumn's stomach clench. The beta female had been circling Rex like a predator for months, her ambitions as sharp as her perfectly manicured claws. Beautiful, connected, ruthless, everything a future Luna should be, according to pack politics. "Alpha business isn't my concern," Autumn said quietly, though her hands trembled slightly as she reached for the salt. "Maybe not, but it affects all of us. New Luna means changes, and changes usually mean some folks get shuffled around or shown the door." Maria lowered her voice. "Between you and me, I'd hate to see you go. Best head cook we've had in decades." Autumn nodded, though the words sent ice through her veins. If Victoria became Luna, how long would it be before she started cleaning house? How long before questions were asked about the quiet Omega cook who kept to herself, and her mysterious child? The next few hours passed in their usual orchestrated chaos. The kitchen filled with staff, the air thick with steam and the sounds of sizzling pans and chopping knives. Autumn moved through it all like a conductor leading a symphony, adjusting seasonings, coordinating timing, ensuring every dish met her exacting standards. She was ladling the finished stew into serving containers when she caught a scent that shouldn't have been there. Pine and mountain air, leather and something darker, more primal. Her ladle clattered against the pot's rim. Alpha King Rex Coldridge stood in the kitchen doorway, his imposing frame filling the space. Even in the controlled chaos of the breakfast rush, his presence commanded immediate attention. Conversations quieted. Movements became more deliberate. The air itself seemed to thicken with his authority. Autumn kept her head down, focusing intently on her task, but she could feel his golden eyes scanning the room. He rarely came to the kitchens during service hours. What was he doing here? Smells exceptional this morning. His voice carried easily over the kitchen sounds, that distinctive baritone that could make commands sound like silk. "Thank you, Alpha," Autumn murmured along with the other staff, her voice barely audible. His footsteps moved closer, stopping near her station. She could feel the heat radiating from his body, could smell the complex layers of his scent. Something in it tugged at her memory, at places she had sealed shut. "This stew," he said, and she realized he was addressing her directly. "It's different from what we usually serve." Autumn forced herself to look up, though she kept her gaze focused somewhere around his chin, rather than meeting his eyes. "It's an old family recipe, Alpha. I thought the pack might enjoy something traditional." "Family recipe?" He seemed to taste the words. And what family would that be? The question hung in the air like a blade. Around them, the kitchen had gone quiet, all pretense of work abandoned, as everyone strained to listen. Just old pack traditions, Alpha. Nothing special. Her voice threatened to crack, but she held it steady. Rex studied her for a long moment, his head tilted slightly as if he were trying to place something. When he breathed in, Autumn saw his nostrils flare slightly, and panic fluttered in her chest. Could he detect something? Had her scent changed back somehow? "What's your name again?" he asked, though she was certain he already knew it. "Autumn Hayes, Alpha. Hayes." He rolled the name around like he was testing its weight. "And you've been with us how long?" 4 years, Alpha." Something flickered in his golden eyes, too quick for her to interpret. 4 years. He repeated softly. The kitchen timer chose that moment to chime, breaking the spell. Autumn jumped at the sound, using it as an excuse to turn away from his penetrating stare. "The bread's ready," she said quickly, moving toward the ovens. When she looked back, Rex was gone, leaving only the lingering scent of pine and leather, and the uncomfortable feeling that everything had somehow changed in the span of a few minutes. The rest of the service passed in a blur. By the time the last breakfast dish had been served and the cleaning begun, Autumn's nerves were frayed raw. She needed to see Oliver, needed to hold him, and remind herself why she endured this constant state of fear. But first, she had to finish her duties. The lunch prep wouldn't wait, and displaying any weakness now, after Rex's unexpected visit, would only invite more scrutiny. As she reached for her knife to begin chopping vegetables for the afternoon meal, her hands were shaking. Chapter 2. Haunted Recognition. Rex stood at the window of his office, staring out at the moonlit forest beyond the pack house walls. But his mind was elsewhere entirely. 3 days had passed since his unexpected visit to the kitchens, and he couldn't shake the feeling that something significant had occurred. Something his conscious mind couldn't quite grasp, but his wolf understood with perfect clarity. The scent. There had been something about Autumn Hayes' scent that called to him. Layers beneath layers that his heightened senses had detected but couldn't fully decipher. It was maddening, like trying to remember a dream upon waking, the details slipping away even as he reached for them. He found himself making excuses to visit the kitchens with increasing frequency. Quality inspections, he told himself, ensuring the pack's nutrition standards were being maintained. But the truth was simpler and more disturbing. He was hunting something he couldn't name, chasing shadows of memory that refused to materialize. "You're brooding again." Victoria Thornberry's voice cut through his thoughts as she entered his office without invitation, a habit that had become increasingly irritating. She moved with predatory grace, her platinum blonde hair catching the lamplight, ice blue eyes assessing him like a prize she intended to claim. "I'm thinking," Rex corrected, not turning from the window. "There's a difference." "About what? Or should I ask about whom?" Her tone carried a dangerous edge. "The pack is starting to whisper, Rex, about your sudden interest in the kitchens." About the attention you're paying to a certain Omega cook. Rex finally turned, his golden eyes flashing with warning. Careful, Victoria. You're overstepping. She laughed, the sound sharp and calculated. Am I? We're to be announced within the month. I have every right to be concerned about my future mate's distractions. The presumption in her voice made his wolf snarl, but Rex kept his expression neutral. The political marriage had been in negotiation for months, the council pressing him to secure an alliance with Victoria's influential family. But something in him rebelled against it, had been rebelling against it for reasons he couldn't articulate. Nothing has been finalized, he said carefully, but it will be. Victoria moved closer, her scent, expensive perfume and ambition, filling the space between them. Unless you're having second thoughts about our arrangement. Rex studied her face, noting the calculation behind her beauty, the cold intelligence that never quite reached her eyes. She would make a politically advantageous Luna. He couldn't deny that. Her family controlled significant territory to the east, and their alliance would strengthen his pack's position considerably. So why did the thought of claiming her make his skin crawl? I need more time, he said finally. Victoria's smile didn't waver, but something dangerous flickered in her gaze. Time for what, exactly? To chase after kitchen staff? Really, Rex, I thought you had better taste. The insult to Autumn hit him like a physical blow, surprising him with its intensity. Watch yourself, he growled, alpha authority bleeding into his voice. For a moment, Victoria's mask slipped, revealing the calculating predator beneath. Then she smiled again, this time with genuine amusement. My apologies. I didn't realize the little Omega meant something to you. She doesn't, Rex said quickly, too quickly. I merely don't appreciate your tone. Of course not. Victoria moved to his desk, perching on the edge with calculated casualness. Though I have to admit, I'm curious about her. Autumn Hayes, isn't it? Appeared 4 years ago, keeps to herself, has a child but no mate. Quite the mystery. Rex's entire body went still. What did you say? About her having a child? Oh yes, everyone knows. A little boy, though she's very secretive about him. Won't even let him play with the other pack children during the day. Makes one wonder what she's hiding. The pieces clicked together in Rex's mind with nauseating clarity. 4 years ago. A child. The timing was... Excuse me, he said abruptly, striding toward the door. Where are you going? Victoria called after him. Kitchen inspection, he replied, already halfway down the hall. He found Autumn in the prep area, working alone in the quiet aftermath of dinner service. She was kneading bread dough, her movements rhythmic and soothing, completely absorbed in her task. The sight of her hands working the dough, strong and capable, sent an unexpected jolt through him. She looked up as he approached, and he caught the flash of panic in her green eyes before she quickly lowered her gaze. Alpha, she murmured. Is there something wrong with dinner? I can prepare something else if... The food was excellent, he interrupted, moving closer. As always. She continued kneading, but he could see the tension in her shoulders, could scent the spike of anxiety in her natural fragrance. And underneath it, something else. Something that made his wolf pace restlessly. I understand you have a child, he said, watching her reaction carefully. Her hands stilled for a fraction of a second, before resuming their work. Yes, Alpha. A son. And where is he now? Sleeping. It's past his bedtime. Her voice was steady, but he could hear the slight tremor underneath. What's his name? This time she did pause, looking up at him with poorly concealed wariness. Oliver. Oliver, Rex repeated, tasting the name. And his father? Autumn's face went pale. There is no father. Not in any way that matters. Everyone has a father, Autumn. He stepped closer. Close enough that his scent would be surrounding her. Close enough that he could detect every nuance of her emotional state. The question is, whether they acknowledge their children. She turned back to her dough with jerky movements, her breathing becoming shallow. Some men don't deserve to be called fathers. The pain in her voice was unmistakable, and something protective flared in Rex's chest. Did he abandon you? Please, she whispered. I don't want to talk about this. You mentioned this was a family recipe yesterday, he pressed, unwilling to let the subject drop. Your stew. What family? I misspoke. Her hands were shaking now, working the dough more aggressively than necessary. It's just something I learned, nothing important. Rex watched her for a long moment, taking in the defensive set of her shoulders, the way she avoided meeting his eyes, the complex layers of her scent that seemed to shift and change the more agitated she became. There was something there, something significant, but it danced just beyond his understanding. How old is Oliver? He asked quietly. The question seemed to hit her like a physical blow. She stopped kneading entirely, her knuckles white as she gripped the counter. 3, she whispered. 3 years old. Born approximately 9 months after the masquerade ball 4 years ago. The ball where he had met. Rex's breath caught as a memory surfaced unbidden. Wildflowers and summer rain, the scent of a mysterious woman in his arms, her face hidden behind an elaborate silver mask, her body fitting against his like she was made for him. The most intoxicating night of his life ended when she vanished before dawn without revealing her identity. He had searched for her for months afterward. That haunting fragrance burned into his memory, driving him half mad with longing. But she had disappeared completely, as if she had never existed at all. Could it be? Could Autumn be? No. Impossible. The scents were different, changed. The woman from the ball had been soft, curved, her natural fragrance pure and untainted. Autumn was harder, leaner, her scent layered with old pain and careful concealment. But the timing. Autumn, he said carefully. Have we met before? She went rigid, every muscle in her body tense with fear. No, Alpha, never. The lie hung between them like a living thing. Rex could taste it in the air, could see it in every line of her body. But why would she lie? What was she hiding? The kitchen door burst open, interrupting his thoughts. A small figure darted inside, moving with surprising speed for such a tiny child. The boy, Oliver, came to a sudden stop when he saw Rex, his eyes going wide. And those eyes, Rex felt the world tilt beneath his feet. Golden. The child's eyes were the exact same shade of molten gold as his own. Mama! Oliver ran to Autumn, wrapping his small arms around her legs. I had a bad dream. Mrs. Chen said you were working. Autumn's face had gone white as parchment. She bent to scoop up her son, holding him protectively against her chest, her green eyes darting between Oliver and Rex with naked terror. It's all right, sweetheart, she murmured into the boy's dark hair. Mama's here. Rex stared at the child in her arms, taking in the familiar bone structure, the way he held himself even at 3 years old with an unconscious confidence that spoke of alpha bloodline. The resemblance was unmistakable once he knew to look for it. Hello, Oliver, he said softly. The boy lifted his head from his mother's shoulder, studying Rex with curious eyes that were far too perceptive for his age. Are you the Alpha King? Oliver asked with the directness of childhood. I am. Mama says you're very important, and very busy. The child's gaze never wavered, meeting Rex's stare with a fearlessness that was both admirable and familiar. Sometimes, Rex agreed, though never too busy for pack members, especially the youngest ones. Autumn shifted nervously, clutching Oliver tighter. We should get back. It's late and he needs his rest. Of course. Rex stepped aside, but his eyes never left the child's face. Sleep well, Oliver. Good night, Alpha King, Oliver replied gravely. As they reached the door, Rex called out softly, Autumn. She froze, but didn't turn around. We will finish our conversation soon. It wasn't a request. Chapter 3. Dangerous Proximity. Rex found himself standing outside Autumn's quarters at 7 a.m, holding an official pack housing reassignment document that had taken him half the night to draft. The modest staff housing block stretched before him, a stark contrast to the main pack house with its grand architecture and luxury. Here, the buildings were functional, clean but basic, designed for those who served rather than led. He had spent hours after the kitchen encounter pacing his office, Oliver's golden eyes haunting his thoughts. The resemblance was too striking to ignore, the timing too coincidental to dismiss. But he needed more than suspicions and physical similarities. He needed proximity, observation, the kind of access that would either confirm his growing certainty or lay his fears to rest. Autumn answered his knock after several long moments, her appearance suggesting she had been awake for some time despite the early hour. Her dark chestnut hair was pulled back in a practical bun, and she wore simple work clothes that couldn't disguise the underlying tension in her posture. "Alpha," she said, surprise and wariness mingling in her voice. "Is everything all right?" "Good morning, Autumn. May I come in?" She hesitated for a fraction of a second before stepping aside, gesturing him into the small living area. The space was immaculately clean but sparse, decorated with the kind of careful minimalism that spoke of someone who had learned to value security over possessions. A few toys were scattered near the couch, the only sign that a child lived here. "Oliver?" Rex asked, noting the absence of the boy who had dominated his thoughts. "Still sleeping. He's not an early riser unless he has to be." Her hands twisted in front of her, betraying her nervousness despite her controlled tone. Rex nodded, withdrawing the document from his jacket. "I have something for you. A housing reassignment." The blood drained from her face. "Reassignment? Have I done something wrong? If this is about last night, about Oliver being in the kitchen." "Nothing like that," Rex interrupted, surprised by the genuine concern in her voice. "This is an upgrade. The pack owes you a debt of gratitude for your exceptional service over the past 4 years. It's time we recognized your value properly." She stared at the document as if it might bite her. "I don't understand." "You're being relocated to the staff housing adjacent to the main pack house. Better quarters, a proper kitchen for your personal use, and importantly, a secure play area where Oliver can spend time outdoors safely." "But why?" The question came out as barely a whisper. Rex had prepared for this moment, had crafted reasonable explanations that would satisfy pack protocol. "As I said, your service has been exemplary. Additionally, having our head cook closer to the main kitchens will improve efficiency during busy periods." What he didn't say was that the new quarters would place her directly within his territory, close enough that he could monitor her comings and goings, close enough that her scent would be a constant presence, close enough that he could unravel whatever secrets she was hiding. Autumn held the document with shaking hands, scanning the official language with the careful attention of someone who had learned not to trust verbal promises. "This is very generous, Alpha. But I'm comfortable where I am. I'm sure you are. But comfort isn't the primary consideration here. Security is." He let his alpha authority color his words, not enough to be overwhelming, but sufficient to convey that this wasn't truly a request. "A valuable pack member like yourself deserves proper protection." The implication hung in the air between them. Protection from what? From whom? Autumn's green eyes searched his face as if trying to read his true motivations. But Rex had years of practice at political maneuvering. His expression remained carefully neutral. "When would this take effect?" she asked finally. "Today, if you're amenable. I can have pack members assist with the move." "That's not necessary. We don't have much." She set the document on the small dining table with careful precision. "But I should wake Oliver. Explain what's happening." "Of course. Take your time." Rex waited in the living area, while Autumn disappeared into what he assumed was the bedroom. He could hear her soft voice explaining the situation to Oliver, the boy's excited responses at the prospect of a new place to explore. The domestic intimacy of the moment struck him unexpectedly, a longing for something he had never allowed himself to want. When they emerged 15 minutes later, Oliver was fully dressed and practically vibrating with enthusiasm. He had inherited his mother's delicate bone structure, but carried himself with an unconscious confidence that spoke of alpha bloodline. The resemblance to Rex's own childhood photos was unmistakable once he knew to look for it. "Alpha King!" Oliver ran toward him without the shy hesitation most pack children displayed around authority figures. "Mama says we get a new house." "That's right," Rex replied, crouching to bring himself closer to the child's level. "A bigger house with a garden where you can play. Can I see it now, please?" Those golden eyes were bright with excitement, so achingly familiar that Rex felt something clench in his chest. "If your mother agrees." Autumn nodded reluctantly. "We should probably see what we're getting into." The walk to the new quarters gave Rex an opportunity to observe them together. Oliver chattered constantly, asking questions about everything he saw, displaying the kind of fearless curiosity that was characteristic of alpha children. Autumn answered patiently, but Rex could see the tension in her shoulders, could scent the underlying anxiety beneath her composed exterior. The staff housing adjacent to the pack house was significantly more luxurious than the standard quarters. Each unit had 2 bedrooms, a full kitchen, and a private outdoor space. Rex had selected the one closest to the main building, ostensibly for convenience, but actually for the access it would give him. "This is amazing, Mama." Oliver ran from room to room, his delighted laughter echoing through the space. "Look, I have my own room." Autumn followed more slowly, taking in the upgraded appliances, the spacious layout, the quality furnishings that far exceeded anything she would have expected. When she emerged from inspecting the bedrooms, her expression was carefully controlled, but Rex could read the questions in her eyes. "This is very generous," she said quietly. "More than generous. You deserve it." "Do I?" She studied his face intently. "Or is there something you're not telling me?" Before Rex could answer, Oliver came barreling out of what would be his new bedroom, clutching something in his small hands. "Look, Mama! I found this!" He held up a piece of paper and several crayons, apparently left behind by previous occupants. Without waiting for permission, he settled cross-legged on the living room floor and began to draw with intense concentration. "What are you making, sweetheart?" Autumn asked, moving to sit beside her son. "A picture for the Alpha King," Oliver replied matter-of-factly, "to say thank you for the new house." Rex found himself drawn to watch the child's artistic efforts, fascinated despite himself. Oliver's tongue peeked out in concentration as he worked, his small hands surprisingly steady as he added detail to his drawing. After several minutes, he held up the finished product with obvious pride. Done. The drawing was typical of a 3-year-old's artwork, stick figures in bold colors with more enthusiasm than technical skill. But the subject matter made Rex's breath catch. Oliver had drawn a family, a woman with dark hair, a small child, and a tall man with what appeared to be golden eyes and dark hair. "That's beautiful, Oliver," Autumn said, though her voice was strained. "Who are the people in your picture?" "That's you, Mama. And that's me." Oliver pointed to each figure in turn. "And that's Papa." The silence that followed was deafening. Rex stared at the crude drawing, at the way the child had instinctively portrayed the man with his exact coloring, his approximate height relative to Autumn's smaller frame. "Papa?" Rex repeated softly. Oliver nodded enthusiastically. "Mama says I don't have a papa, but I dream about him sometimes. He has eyes like mine, and he's really strong, and he smells like the forest." Autumn had gone white as bone. She reached for the drawing with shaking hands, but Oliver pulled it back. "It's for Alpha King," he said firmly. "He gave us the nice house." Rex accepted the drawing, studying the innocent artistry that revealed so much. The resemblance the child had captured, probably without conscious understanding, was impossible to ignore. But it was Oliver's words that struck him like physical blows. Dreams about a father he had never met. A father who smelled like the forest. Autumn stood abruptly, her movements jerky and uncontrolled. "Oliver, why don't you go explore your new room some more? We need to figure out where to put all your toys." "Okay, Mama." The boy scampered off, already forgetting his artwork in favor of new adventures. The moment they were alone, Autumn turned to Rex with desperation in her green eyes. "Please," she whispered, "don't read anything into a child's imagination. He's too young to understand." "Is he?" Rex interrupted, setting the drawing carefully on the coffee table. "Because his imagination seems remarkably specific. Children make up stories all the time. It doesn't mean anything." Rex stepped closer, close enough that she had to tilt her head back to meet his gaze. "Then explain the resemblance. Explain the timing. Explain why you're so terrified every time I'm near you." "I'm not terrified," she lied. "Your scent says otherwise." He could smell it now, the complex layers of her emotional state. Fear, yes, but underneath it, something else. Something that made his wolf pace restlessly. "There's something familiar about you, Autumn. Something that calls to me in ways I can't explain." She pressed her lips together, clearly fighting some internal battle. For a moment, Rex thought she might confess whatever secret she was harboring. But then Oliver's voice called from the bedroom, asking for help reaching something. And the moment shattered. "I should help him," she said quickly, moving toward the doorway. Rex caught her arm gently, careful not to use too much of his superior strength. The contact sent an electric shock through both of them, and he saw her eyes widen with something that looked like recognition before she quickly looked away. "We will finish this conversation," he said quietly. "Soon." She nodded wordlessly and disappeared into the bedroom, leaving Rex alone with a child's drawing and the growing certainty that his entire world was about to change. Chapter 4. Unraveling. Truth. 2 weeks had passed since the housing reassignment, and Rex found himself inventing reasons to be near Autumn's new quarters with increasing frequency. The proximity he had orchestrated was working exactly as intended, and torturing him in ways he hadn't anticipated. From his office window, he could see Oliver playing in the small garden outside their unit, the boy's laughter carrying on the afternoon breeze. The child moved with a natural confidence that grew more pronounced each day, displaying the kind of fearless authority that marked future alphas. When other pack children came near, they instinctively deferred to him despite his young age, recognizing something in him that went beyond typical pack hierarchy. Rex was reviewing territory reports when a commotion in the courtyard below drew his attention. Oliver had fallen from the low stone wall he had been walking along, and even from this distance, Rex could see the bright red bloom of blood on the boy's forehead. He was moving before conscious thought took hold, abandoning his papers and taking the stairs 3 at a time. By the time he reached the courtyard, Autumn was already there, cradling Oliver against her chest while examining the gash above his left eyebrow. "It's okay, sweetheart," she murmured, though her voice was tight with worry. "It's just a little cut." But it wasn't little. Rex could smell the copper tang of blood in the air, could see the way it flowed freely from the wound. Head injuries in children were nothing to take lightly, even for shifters with accelerated healing. "He needs the pack doctor," Rex said, his alpha authority cutting through the small crowd that had gathered. Autumn looked up at him with grateful eyes. "I was going to take him myself, but I'll carry him. It'll be faster." Without waiting for her agreement, Rex gently lifted Oliver from her arms. The child was crying, but not hysterically, more from shock than pain. The moment Rex's hands made contact with him, Oliver's crying quieted to small hiccups. "Alpha King." Oliver sniffled, wrapping his small arms around Rex's neck with complete trust. "I fell down. I can see that, brave boy. We're going to get you fixed up." The pack clinic was only a few minutes away, but those minutes felt like hours. Rex was acutely aware of the small weight in his arms, of the way Oliver fit perfectly against his chest, of the trust the child showed in someone who was essentially a stranger. Most 3-year-olds would be terrified of the Alpha King, but Oliver seemed to find comfort in his presence. Autumn walked beside them, her anxiety rolling off her in waves. Rex could scent the complex layers of her emotional state, fear for her child, gratitude for his help, and underneath it all, something that made his wolf stir restlessly. Dr. Martinez was waiting for them, having been alerted by one of the pack members who had witnessed the accident. She was an efficient beta in her 50s, respected throughout the territory for her skill and discretion. "Let's see what we have here," she said gently, gesturing for Rex to place Oliver on the examination table. "I don't want to let go of Alpha King," Oliver protested, tightening his grip around Rex's neck. The words hit Rex like a physical blow. The absolute trust in the child's voice, the way he clung to him as if seeking protection from a father. It was almost more than he could bear. "You can hold his hand," Dr. Martinez suggested diplomatically. "But I need to clean this cut and see how deep it is." Rex positioned himself where Oliver could maintain contact while the doctor worked. The gash was deeper than it had initially appeared, requiring several stitches. Throughout the procedure, Oliver alternated between watching with fascination and burying his face against Rex's arm. "You're being very brave," Rex told him softly. "Mama says I'm strong like Papa," Oliver replied matter-of-factly, "even though I never met him." Autumn's sharp intake of breath was audible across the small room. Rex met her eyes over Oliver's head, seeing the panic there, the desperate plea for him not to pursue that line of conversation. "All done," Dr. Martinez announced, applying a final bandage. "He'll need to keep this dry for a few days, but it should heal cleanly. No permanent scarring." "Thank you," Autumn said, moving to gather Oliver into her arms. But the child wasn't finished with his revelations. "Dr. Martinez, do you know my papa?" The doctor glanced between Autumn and Rex with obvious confusion. "I'm sorry, sweetheart. I don't know who your papa is. He has eyes like mine," Oliver continued innocently. "And he's really strong. And he smells like trees and rain." Rex felt the world tilt beneath his feet. Trees and rain. That was exactly how his scent had been described by previous lovers. The natural alpha fragrance that was as distinctive as a fingerprint. "Oliver," Autumn said urgently, "we should go home now. You need to rest." But Dr. Martinez was studying the interaction with growing interest. As the pack's primary physician, she had delivered most of the children born in the territory over the past decade. Her gaze moved from Oliver's golden eyes to Rex's identical ones, then to the child's bone structure, his unconscious mannerisms. "Interesting," she murmured, then looked directly at Rex. "Alpha, could I speak with you privately for a moment?" "Of course." Rex turned to Autumn. "Why don't you take Oliver home? I'll be along shortly to check on him." Autumn nodded mutely, gathering their things with shaking hands. As she lifted Oliver, the boy looked back over her shoulder at Rex. "Will you come visit me, Alpha King, to make sure I'm okay?" "I will," Rex promised, and meant it. After they left, Dr. Martinez closed the clinic door and turned to face him with the kind of expression that meant she had drawn conclusions he might not want to hear. "That child's blood type is AB negative," she said without preamble. "Extremely rare. I've only seen it in one other pack member during my time here." Rex felt his mouth go dry. "And that would be? You, Alpha, when you were injured in that border skirmish 2 years ago and needed emergency surgery." She crossed her arms, studying him with clinical intensity. "AB negative occurs in less than 1% of the population. For 2 unrelated individuals in the same small pack to have it would be statistically impossible." The confirmation he had been both seeking and dreading hit him like a physical blow. The blood compatibility, combined with everything else, the resemblance, the timing, Oliver's instinctive trust in him, painted a picture he could no longer deny. "Are you saying what I think you're saying?" Rex asked quietly. "I'm saying that child is your biological son. The question is whether you knew that already, or if you're just figuring it out now." Rex sank into the nearest chair, the weight of the revelation crushing down on him. "I suspected, but I hoped I was wrong." "Why would you hope that? He's a beautiful, intelligent child with clear alpha potential. Any father would be proud. Because if he's mine, then Autumn..." Rex couldn't finish the sentence. The implications were too staggering, too overwhelming. "The mother hasn't told you," Dr. Martinez observed. "That explains the terror I could scent coming off her. She's been hiding this from you for 3 years. 4 years, Rex corrected automatically. "Since before he was born." Dr. Martinez raised an eyebrow. "That's a long time to keep such a significant secret. There must be a compelling reason." Rex thought of Victoria, of the political marriage negotiations, of the complex web of pack politics that had dominated his life for so long. How could Autumn have approached him 4 years ago, when she was just a low-ranking Omega with no family connections? How could she have explained being pregnant by the Alpha King without sounding like she was trying to trap him for status? "There are always compelling reasons," he said heavily. "The question is what to do about it now. That depends on whether you want to acknowledge him. Legally, you have no obligation unless you choose to. He's my son." The words came out with more force than he had intended, his alpha authority making the air in the room thicken. "Of course I want to acknowledge him. And his mother?" That was the question that had been tearing him apart since the first moment he'd suspected the truth. Autumn, with her careful distance and hidden fears. Autumn, who might be the mysterious woman from the masquerade ball who had haunted his dreams for 4 years. Autumn, who had given him a son and asked for nothing in return. "That's more complicated," he admitted. "Biological bonds often are." Dr. Martinez's expression softened slightly. "But that child adores you already. In the 15 minutes you've known each other, he's imprinted on you like a duckling. That's not coincidence, Alpha. That's biology recognizing biology." Rex nodded, though his thoughts were churning. If Oliver was his son, and he was now certain that was the case, then everything in his life had just shifted irrevocably. The political marriage with Victoria, his carefully planned future, all of it would have to be reconsidered. "Doctor," he said carefully, "I need your discretion on this matter. Until I can speak with Autumn properly, until we can figure out how to handle this situation, I need you to keep this information confidential." "Of course. Doctor-patient privilege extends to all parties involved." She paused, studying his face. "But Alpha, secrets this significant have a way of coming to light whether we want them to or not. The sooner you address this directly, the better for everyone involved." Rex stood to leave, his mind already racing ahead to the conversation he would need to have with Autumn. But as he reached the door, Dr. Martinez spoke again. "For what it's worth, That woman has raised your son to be remarkable. Whatever her reasons for keeping the secret, she's done right by him. That should count for something." As Rex walked back toward Autumn's quarters, Dr. Martinez's words echoed in his mind. Autumn had raised Oliver alone, had given him everything he needed to thrive, had protected him and loved him without any expectation of support or acknowledgement. The strength that must have required, the sacrifice, it humbled him in ways he hadn't expected. But it also raised questions that demanded answers. If she was the woman from the masquerade ball, why had she left without a word? Why had she hidden her pregnancy? And why, when she returned to his territory, had she taken such care to remain invisible? The answers, he suspected, would change everything. Chapter 5. Shattered Masks. Rex stood outside Autumn's door for long minutes, gathering the courage to knock. The conversation he was about to initiate would change everything between them, and he suspected there would be no going back to the careful distance they had maintained for weeks. Dr. Martinez's revelation echoed in his mind. Oliver was his son. The blood work didn't lie. The timing was perfect, and the resemblance was undeniable once he knew to look for it. When Autumn finally answered his knock, she looked exhausted. Her usually immaculate appearance was disheveled, her dark hair escaping from its bun, stress lines etched around her green eyes. "How is he?" Rex asked quietly. "Sleeping." The pain medication made him drowsy. She stepped aside to let him enter, her movements careful and controlled. "Thank you for what you did today, for helping him, for getting him to the doctor so quickly. You don't need to thank me." Rex moved to the couch where he could see down the hallway toward Oliver's room. The boy's door was slightly ajar, and he could hear the soft sounds of peaceful sleep. Any pack member would have done the same. Would they? Autumn's voice carried a bitter edge. "In my experience, alphas don't usually concern themselves with the children of low-ranking omegas." The statement hung between them like a challenge. Rex studied her face, noting the defensive set of her shoulders, the way she held herself as if preparing for rejection or dismissal. "Is that what you think I am?" he asked. "The kind of alpha who ignores pack children in need?" "I think you're the kind of alpha who has obligations and responsibilities that don't include us." She moved to the kitchen area, putting physical distance between them. "Which is why I don't understand this sudden interest in our welfare." Rex followed her, closing the space she had created. "Autumn, we need to talk. Really talk. No more dancing around the truth." Her hand stilled on the tea kettle she had been reaching for. "I don't know what you mean." "Oliver is my son." The words fell like stones into still water, creating ripples that spread outward and changed everything in their wake. Autumn went completely rigid, her face draining of all color. "That's impossible," she whispered. "Is it?" AB negative blood type, golden eyes, the exact same bone structure as my childhood photos. Rex moved closer, his voice gentle but implacable. "Born approximately 9 months after the masquerade ball 4 years ago." Autumn's breath came in short, sharp gasps. She gripped the counter as if it were the only thing keeping her upright. "You can't know that. You can't prove." The blood compatibility today was perfect. Dr. Martinez confirmed it. Rex reached out as if to touch her, then let his hand fall. "Autumn, I need you to tell me the truth. Were you there that night? Were you the woman in the silver mask?" The question broke something in her. She slumped against the counter, all the fight draining out of her posture. "How?" she asked, her voice barely audible. "How did you recognize me?" "I changed everything. My hair, my weight, my scent. I made sure I was unrecognizable." The admission hit him like a physical blow, even though he had been expecting it. "You were the woman I've been searching for. The one who disappeared before dawn. I had to leave." Tears were streaming down her face now, years of suppressed emotion finally breaking free. "Do you think I wanted to? Do you think it was easy to walk away from the most perfect night of my life? Then why did you?" Autumn laughed, but there was no humor in the sound. "Because I was nobody. I was a low-ranking Omega from a failing pack, attending the ball as a servant, wearing a borrowed dress and a mask I made myself. I had no business being in your arms, no right to dream that it could be anything more than one night." Rex stared at her, pieces of a 4-year-old puzzle finally clicking into place. "You were working the ball?" "Serving drinks, clearing plates, trying to stay invisible. But when the dancing started, when everyone was wearing masks..." She wiped at her tears with shaking hands. I thought just for a few hours I could pretend to be someone worthy of a king's attention. You were always worthy, Rex said fiercely. Title and rank don't determine a person's value, don't they? Autumn's green eyes flashed with old pain. Then explain why, when I discovered I was pregnant, I had nowhere to turn. Explain why no one would believe that the Alpha King had spent the night with a servant. Explain why Victoria Thornberry's people made it very clear that any Omega making false claims about you would face serious consequences. Rex felt ice form in his veins. Victoria knew. She suspected. She had informants at the ball. People watching for any Omega who might have gotten too close to you. Autumn's voice turned bitter. 3 weeks after I discovered the pregnancy, I was approached by her men. They made it clear that leaving the territory permanently would be in my best interests. The implications of what she was saying crashed over him in waves. Victoria had systematically eliminated any threat to her position, had driven away the mother of his child through intimidation and threats. Why didn't you come to me? Rex demanded. Why didn't you tell me what was happening? With what proof? I was a nobody making wild claims about sleeping with the Alpha King. Even if you had believed me, which was unlikely, what then? You would have felt obligated to provide for the child, maybe even claim him. But it would have been duty, not desire. I couldn't live with that. Rex moved closer, his hands framing her face, forcing her to meet his eyes. It wouldn't have been duty. That night, what we shared, it was extraordinary. I've never stopped thinking about you, never stopped searching. But you were already negotiating your marriage to Victoria, Autumn protested. Even if you had wanted to acknowledge Oliver, it would have complicated everything. Your pack needed that alliance. My pack needed me to be happy and settled, not trapped in a loveless political arrangement. His thumbs brushed away her tears with infinite gentleness. Do you know what these 4 years have been like for me? Knowing I had found something perfect and lost it? Wondering if I would ever feel that connection again? You felt it too. The question came out as a whisper. The way everything clicked into place? The way touching you felt like coming home? Like finding the other half of my soul? Rex confirmed. When you left that morning, it nearly destroyed me. They stood frozen in that moment of recognition. 4 years of separation and misunderstanding crashing down around them. Rex could see the woman from the masquerade ball now, hidden beneath the careful disguise of the cook. The same eyes that had captivated him. The same graceful movements. The same scent that was finally beginning to emerge from beneath layers of concealment. I came back, Autumn said quietly. When Oliver was 6 months old, I came back. I couldn't stay away. Couldn't keep your son from his birthright forever. But I also couldn't risk you feeling trapped or obligated. So I found a way to hide in plain sight. As my cook. As someone useful enough to keep around but invisible enough to avoid questions. She pulled back from his touch, wrapping her arms around herself protectively. It was supposed to be temporary. Just until I figured out how to tell you the truth without ruining everything. And instead you've been torturing yourself for 4 years, raising our son alone, watching me from the shadows. Rex's voice was rough with emotion. Autumn, the waste of it all. The time we've lost. I know. Fresh tears spilled down her cheeks. But I didn't know how to fix it. And every day it got harder to find the courage to confess. Especially when Victoria kept pushing for the marriage. When it became clear that acknowledging a secret child would create a political disaster. From down the hallway came the soft sound of Oliver stirring in his sleep. A small whimper that spoke of discomfort from his injury. Both parents turned toward the sound instinctively, their shared concern overriding everything else. I should check on him, Autumn said. We both should. They moved together toward Oliver's room, united in their worry for their child. The little boy was tossing restlessly, his bandaged forehead making him look fragile and young. Mama, Oliver's eyes fluttered open, focusing on them with the disorientation of interrupted sleep. Is Alpha King still here? I'm here, Rex said softly, moving to the bedside. Without hesitation, he reached out to smooth Oliver's dark hair away from the bandage. How are you feeling, brave boy? My head hurts a little, Oliver admitted, leaning into the touch. Will you stay until I fall asleep again? Rex looked at Autumn, seeing his own emotions reflected in her eyes. The simple request from their son, the natural way the child turned to him for comfort, it broke something open in both of them. If your mama says it's okay, Rex replied. Autumn nodded, unable to speak around the tightness in her throat. Rex settled into the chair beside Oliver's bed, and Autumn perched on the edge of the mattress. For the first time in 4 years, they were together as a family, even if none of them fully understood what that meant yet. "Mama," Oliver said drowsily, "is Alpha King my papa? The one from my dreams?" The question hung in the air like a loaded weapon. Autumn looked at Rex with wide, terrified eyes, clearly unprepared for this moment of truth. "What do you think, Oliver?" Rex asked gently. Oliver studied Rex's face with the serious intensity of childhood, comparing what he saw to some internal image. "You have the same eyes as me, and you smell like trees and rain, just like in my dreams. And," he paused, reaching out to touch Rex's hand, "and you feel like home." Rex's throat closed completely. The simple, honest words from his son were more devastating than any declaration of love from an adult could have been. "Then yes," he managed to say. "I'm your papa." Oliver smiled sleepily and closed his eyes, his small hand still wrapped around Rex's finger. "I knew you would come find us someday." Within minutes, the child was sleeping peacefully again, but Rex remained frozen in place, overwhelmed by the magnitude of what had just happened. He was a father, not just biologically, but officially, acknowledged, claimed. The child he had helped create was finally his to protect and love. When he looked up, Autumn was watching him with an expression of wonder and terror mixed together. "There's no going back from this," she whispered. "No," Rex agreed. "There isn't. The question is, are you ready to move forward?" Chapter 6. The storm breaks. The Pack Council meeting had been scheduled for 2 days after Rex acknowledged Oliver as his son. Word traveled fast in the close-knit shifter community, and by morning, everyone knew that the Alpha King had claimed a secret heir. The revelation sent shockwaves through the carefully maintained political structure that had been building toward his marriage with Victoria Thornberry. Rex stood at the head of the ancient oak table, facing 12 of the territory's most influential members. Their expressions ranged from curious to hostile, with Victoria's faction clearly preparing for battle. She sat at his right hand, her ice-blue eyes burning with fury barely concealed beneath a mask of political composure. "Let me understand this correctly," Elder Harrison began, his weathered face creased with disapproval. "You're claiming that a servant, a cook, has been hiding your heir for 4 years without your knowledge. I'm claiming that Autumn Hayes is the mother of my son, Oliver, who was conceived during the masquerade ball 4 years ago," Rex replied evenly. "The circumstances of their concealment are more complex than you're implying." Victoria's laugh was sharp and bitter. "Convenient, isn't it? A low-ranking Omega suddenly produces a child with golden eyes, just as our marriage negotiations reach their conclusion. How fortuitous for her social climbing aspirations." Rex's alpha authority flared, making the air in the room thicken. "Be very careful how you speak about the mother of my child, Victoria. Your alleged child," she corrected coldly. "Without DNA testing, this is nothing more than an opportunistic Omega making wild claims for personal gain. The blood work has been confirmed," Dr. Martinez interjected from her seat near the end of the table. "AB negative blood type, perfect compatibility for transfusion, and distinctive genetic markers that are impossible to fake." Victoria's composure cracked slightly. "Blood types can be coincidental. Physical resemblance can be manipulated through careful observation and mimicry. None of this constitutes proof of paternity." "Then what would satisfy you?" Rex asked, his voice dangerously quiet. "Official genetic testing, for starters. A full investigation into this woman's background and her true motivations for keeping such a significant secret. And most importantly," Victoria leaned forward, her predatory instincts on full display, "answers about why she chose to reveal herself now, just as you're about to fulfill your obligations to this pack through a proper political alliance." The accusation hung in the air like a poisoned blade. Rex could see some of the council members nodding in agreement, their suspicions fed by Victoria's skillful manipulation of the situation. "I didn't reveal myself," came a quiet voice from the doorway. "He discovered the truth despite my efforts to keep it hidden." Every head in the room turned to see Autumn standing in the entrance. Oliver's small hand clasped firmly in hers. She had dressed carefully for this confrontation. Not in her usual work clothes, but in a simple blue dress that highlighted her natural beauty and dignity. Oliver wore his best outfit, looking every inch the alpha prince he was born to be. Ms. Hayes, Elder Harrison said coldly. This is a closed council meeting. You have no authority to be here. As the mother of the Alpha's acknowledged heir, I have every right to defend my son's legitimacy, Autumn replied, her voice steady, despite the obvious terror in her scent. Especially when his birthright is being questioned by people who would benefit from his absence. Victoria rose from her chair like a striking serpent. How dare you imply— I imply nothing, Autumn interrupted, her green eyes flashing with dangerous fire. I state facts. 4 years ago, you had me removed from this territory because you saw me as a threat to your ambitions. When I returned, I deliberately kept my identity hidden to avoid exactly this kind of political maneuvering. Lies, Victoria snarled. Pure fabrication designed to— Is it? Autumn reached into her purse and withdrew a small recording device. Because I have documentation of the threats your people made, the bribes they offered, and the very clear message that my continued presence would be detrimental to my health. The room went deadly silent. Victoria's face had gone white, her carefully constructed composure finally cracking completely. You recorded private conversations? Elder Harrison demanded. I recorded threats against my life and the life of my unborn child, Autumn corrected. When powerful people abuse their authority, sometimes the only protection available is evidence of their crimes. Rex moved to stand beside her, his presence lending strength to her resolve. Play it, he commanded. The recording was brief, but damning. Victoria's lieutenant could be heard clearly offering Autumn money to leave the territory and never return, with explicit threats about what would happen if she refused, or if she ever attempted to claim that her child belonged to the Alpha King. When the recording ended, the silence in the room was absolute. Victoria looked like a trapped animal, her ice-blue eyes darting between potential escape routes. This proves nothing, she said desperately. My security team was protecting Rex from fraudulent claims. They had no way of knowing that the claims were legitimate. Autumn finished for her. Which means you ordered the removal of a pregnant woman carrying the Alpha's heir based on nothing more than suspicion and jealousy. Victoria's mask finally shattered completely. You think you can waltz in here after 4 years and steal what's rightfully mine? I've devoted my life to preparing for the position of Luna. I've made alliances, secured territories, built the foundation for this pack's future. I won't be displaced by some nobody with a bastard child and a sob story. The insult to Oliver was the final straw. Rex's wolf surged forward, his alpha dominance filling the room like a physical presence. When he spoke, his voice carried the absolute authority of a king whose word was law. You will apologize to my son immediately, or you will leave this territory forever. Victoria stared at him in shock, clearly not expecting such a definitive response. Rex, you can't be serious. Think about what you're throwing away. My family's alliance, the Eastern Territories, the political stability. I'm thinking about what's truly important, Rex replied, his golden eyes never leaving her face. My mate. My child. My family. The word mate sent another shockwave through the room. Rex hadn't just acknowledged Oliver as his heir. He was claiming Autumn as his intended Luna. Victoria's face contorted with rage and desperation. She's nobody. A kitchen servant who got lucky one night and trapped you with pregnancy. I am the daughter of an alpha bloodline, educated and prepared to lead. I am what this pack needs. What this pack needs, Rex said quietly, is a Luna who puts family above politics, love above ambition. What this pack needs is integrity, not manipulation and threats. Oliver, who had been watching the proceedings with the serious attention of a child trying to understand adult conflicts, suddenly stepped forward. Why is the mean lady talking about me like that? He asked, his golden eyes focused on Victoria with disturbing intensity. And why does she smell like she wants to hurt Mama? The innocence of the question, combined with the child's obvious ability to read emotional sense despite his young age, struck the room like lightning. Here was Rex's son, displaying alpha abilities that most children didn't develop until much older, instinctively recognizing threats to his family. Victoria made a critical error. Instead of backing down or attempting damage control, she let her fury override her judgment. Because your mama is a liar and a manipulator, she snapped at the 3-year-old, and you're nothing more than a mistake that's ruining everything. The moment the words left her mouth, the air in the room became electric with danger. Rex's alpha power exploded outward, making every wolf in the vicinity submit instinctively. Even the strongest council members lowered their eyes, unable to meet his gaze. But it wasn't just Rex responding to the threat against his child. Oliver, despite his young age, began to emit his own aura of dominance. Weak compared to an adult alpha, but unmistakably royal bloodline. The combination of father and son's power was overwhelming. "Mama," Oliver said quietly, not taking his eyes off Victoria. "The mean lady smells like the bad wolves in my dreams." Autumn knelt beside her son, wrapping protective arms around him while keeping her own gaze fixed on Victoria. "It's okay, sweetheart. The mean lady is going to leave now." Victoria realized too late that she had crossed a line from which there was no return. By threatening a child, the Alpha's acknowledged heir, in front of the entire council, she had committed an act that could not be forgiven or forgotten. "Rex," she began desperately. "I didn't mean—" "You meant every word," Rex interrupted, his voice cold as winter storm. "And now the entire council has witnessed your true character. Your willingness to attack innocent children, your complete lack of honor or decency." He moved to stand behind his family, one hand on Autumn's shoulder, the other resting protectively on Oliver's head. "I formally reject any alliance with the Thornberry family. Victoria, you have 1 hour to gather your belongings and leave my territory. If you ever threaten my mate or my son again, I will consider it an act of war." Victoria looked around the room desperately, seeking support from her political allies. But the other council members had witnessed her complete breakdown, had seen her attack a child with vicious cruelty. Whatever political capital she had built over the years evaporated in the face of such fundamental dishonor. "This isn't over," she whispered, her voice shaking with impotent rage. "Yes," Rex replied with absolute finality. "It is." As Victoria stormed from the room, Rex looked around the table at the remaining council members. "Does anyone else question my son's legitimacy or my choice of mate?" The silence that followed was complete and telling. Whatever doubts they might have harbored about Autumn's background or motivations had been swept away by Victoria's spectacular self-destruction. Elder Harrison cleared his throat carefully. "Alpha, I believe I speak for the entire council when I say we look forward to welcoming your new Luna and the young prince to their proper positions within the pack hierarchy." Rex nodded, then looked down at Oliver, who was watching the proceedings with fascination. "What do you think, son? Ready to be a prince?" Oliver considered this seriously, then looked up at his father with a grin that was pure mischief. "Do princes get to eat dessert first at dinner?" The laughter that rippled through the room broke the remaining tension completely. Whatever challenges lay ahead, the pack had just witnessed the emergence of their new royal family, and their future looked very bright indeed. Chapter 7. Sacred Union. The full moon hung like a silver pendant against the midnight sky, casting ethereal light over the ancient ceremonial grounds deep in the heart of Rex's territory. For generations, Alpha Kings had claimed their mates in this sacred grove, where the oldest oaks formed a natural cathedral, and the air itself thrummed with ancestral power. Autumn stood at the edge of the clearing, her hands trembling as she smoothed the flowing white dress that had been her grandmother's. The gown was simple but elegant, made of silk that seemed to capture and reflect the moonlight. Around her throat lay a necklace of moonstones that Rex had presented to her that afternoon. Ancient stones worn by every Luna before her, now hers by right. "You look beautiful, Mama," Oliver whispered beside her. He was dressed in formal attire befitting his new status as acknowledged heir. But what struck everyone who saw him was the natural dignity he carried despite his young age. The past week had seen remarkable changes in the boy. His alpha abilities were strengthening daily, and he moved with the confidence of someone who finally understood his place in the world. "Thank you, sweetheart," Autumn murmured, pressing a kiss to his dark hair. "Are you ready to be part of this ceremony?" Oliver nodded solemnly. He had spent hours with Rex learning about the mating ritual, understanding his role as witness and symbol of the union that was about to be formalized. For a 3-year-old, he grasped the significance with remarkable maturity. The drums began, a deep, rhythmic pounding that seemed to echo from the earth itself. Pack members emerged from the forest shadows, forming a wide circle around the ceremonial space. Their eyes glowed in the darkness, reflecting both human intelligence and primal wolf instincts awakened by the ancient ritual they were witnessing. Rex stepped into the center of the grove, and Autumn's breath caught. He was magnificent in the moonlight, wearing traditional ceremonial garb that emphasized his powerful build and royal bearing. But it was his eyes that captured her. Those golden depths that had haunted her dreams for 4 years, now fixed on her with an intensity that made her skin burn. Autumn Hayes. His voice carried clearly across the clearing, imbued with alpha authority that made every wolf present stand at attention. Will you come forward and accept the claiming bond? This was the moment of choice, the final opportunity to retreat if doubt remained. Autumn could feel the weight of centuries of tradition, the expectations of an entire pack, the magnitude of the commitment she was about to make. But when she looked at Rex, when she saw the love and desperate hope in his expression, every fear melted away. I will, she replied, her voice steady and clear. She walked across the moonlit ground with Oliver beside her, their footsteps silent on the soft grass. The pack members watched in reverent silence as their future Luna approached the Alpha King, who had waited 4 years to claim his true mate. Rex reached for her hands when she drew near, his fingers intertwining with hers, in a gesture that sent electricity racing up her arms. The mate bond, which had been dormant since their night at the masquerade, began to stir to life. Before the moon and stars, Rex began, his voice carrying the weight of ritual passed down through generations. Before our pack and the spirits of our ancestors, I claim you as my mate, my Luna, my eternal companion, and I accept your claim, Autumn responded, the ancient words feeling natural on her tongue, despite never having spoken them before. I bind myself to you as mate, as Luna, as the other half of your soul. The pack healer, an elderly woman whose family had performed these ceremonies for decades, stepped forward carrying a silver chalice filled with ceremonial wine mixed with herbs sacred to their kind. Drink, she intoned, and let your essences mingle as your souls unite. Rex lifted the chalice first, his eyes never leaving Autumn's face as he drank deeply. Then he offered it to her, and she followed suit, the wine warming her throat and spreading heat through her entire body. The herbs carried the scent of night-blooming flowers and ancient magic, awakening something primal deep within her wolf spirit. Now comes the marking, the healer announced. This was the most intimate and irreversible part of the ceremony. Rex's hands moved to cup Autumn's face, his thumbs brushing over her cheekbones with infinite tenderness. Are you ready? He whispered, quiet enough that only she could hear. I've been ready for 4 years, she whispered back. Rex's human facade began to shift slightly, allowing his wolf nature to emerge. His canine teeth lengthened, and his eyes blazed with golden fire. But there was nothing frightening about the transformation. Only power and protective love made manifest. He tilted her head to expose the curve of her neck, the traditional spot where an alpha's mark would brand her as his for all the world to see. The pack held its collective breath as Rex lowered his head, his lips brushing her skin in a caress before his teeth found their target. The claiming bite sent shockwaves through Autumn's entire being. There was an instant of sharp pain, immediately overwhelmed by waves of pleasure and connection so intense she gasped aloud. The mate bond exploded to full life between them, creating a psychic link that allowed her to feel Rex's emotions as clearly as her own. Through the bond, she experienced his overwhelming relief at finally, officially making her his desperate love that had sustained him through 4 years of searching, his fierce protectiveness that would guard her and Oliver with his life, his complete devotion that would never waver, never doubt, never abandon them again. When Rex lifted his head, Autumn could taste traces of her own blood on his lips, but more importantly, she could feel his wolf recognition and claiming of hers in ways that transcended the physical marking. My turn, she breathed. Rex tilted his head, exposing the strong column of his throat. Autumn's own wolf rose to the surface, granting her the elongated canines necessary for the reciprocal mark. She had never experienced such a complete transformation of her senses. Suddenly she could smell every individual pack member, could hear heartbeats and breathing patterns, could sense the emotional states of everyone present. When her teeth sank into Rex's neck, the bond between them became complete. She felt his alpha power flowing into her, strengthening her own wolf and awakening abilities she had never known she possessed. But more than that, she felt his soul merging with hers, 2 halves of a whole finally reunited after too many years apart. The pack erupted in howls of celebration, voices raised to the moon in acknowledgement of their new Luna and the restoration of their Alpha's happiness. The sound was primal and beautiful, a song of welcome that made tears stream down Autumn's face. Oliver stepped forward, his small hand reaching for both of his parents. Rex and Autumn broke apart long enough to scoop him up between them, holding him close as the three of them stood together in the moonlight. "Are you officially my family now?" Oliver asked, his golden eyes bright with wonder. "Officially and forever," Rex promised, pressing a kiss to his son's forehead. The healer raised her arms for silence. "Before the assembled pack, I present Rex Coldridge, Alpha King of the Northern Territory, and his mate, Autumn Coldridge, Luna Queen and Mother of the Air. Let all who serve this pack recognize and honor them." The pack members dropped to one knee in unison, heads bowed in respect and acknowledgement. Even the council elders, some of whom had harbored doubts about accepting a former servant as their Luna, showed proper deference to the woman who had just become the second most powerful figure in their society. "Rise, my pack," Rex commanded, his voice carrying the authority of absolute leadership. "Tonight, we celebrate not just a mating, but the healing of old wounds and the promise of a bright future." The formal ceremony concluded, but the celebration was just beginning. Pack members approached throughout the night to offer congratulations and pledges of loyalty to their new Luna. Autumn was overwhelmed by the warmth of their acceptance, the genuine pleasure they showed in their Alpha's happiness. But it was the quiet moments that meant the most to her. When Rex would catch her eye across the crowd and smile with such contentment that her heart nearly burst. When Oliver fell asleep in his father's arms, finally having the family unit he had dreamed about. When the mate bond hummed between them like a constant song of belonging. As dawn approached and the celebration began to wind down, Rex drew Autumn aside to a private corner of the grove. "How do you feel?" he asked, studying her face in the fading moonlight. "Any regrets?" "Only one," she replied, and saw worry flicker in his golden eyes. "I regret that we lost so much time. That Oliver spent 3 years without knowing his father. That you spent 4 years searching for someone who was right under your nose. The time we lost makes the time we have now more precious," Rex said, pulling her close. "And we have eternity to make up for it." Autumn stood on her toes to kiss him, marveling at how right everything felt. The mate bond sang between them. The pack had accepted her, and Oliver was finally part of a complete family. After years of hiding and fear and loneliness, she had found her place in the world. "I love you," she whispered against his lips. "I love you too," he replied. "My Luna, my mate, my eternal companion." In the distance, Oliver stirred in the arms of the pack member who had been watching him, his sleepy voice carrying clearly in the quiet dawn air. "Mama? Papa? Are we going home now?" Rex and Autumn exchanged a look of perfect understanding. Home wasn't a place. It was this, the three of them together, bound by love and blood and the sacred promises they had made under the full moon. "Yes, sweetheart," Autumn called back softly. "We're going home." Chapter 8. Forever Home. 6 months after their mating ceremony, the packhouse kitchen had been transformed into something extraordinary. What had once been a purely functional space for feeding the pack had become the vibrant heart of their community. Laughter echoed off the stone walls as Autumn demonstrated bread-making techniques to a group of young pack members, her hands flour-dusted and her face glowing with contentment. Oliver sat perched on a stool beside her, his small fingers carefully mimicking her kneading motions with his own ball of dough. At 3.5, he had grown remarkably, both physically and in his developing alpha abilities. His golden eyes sparkled with intelligence far beyond his years, and pack members had begun to recognize the future leader he would become. "Mama, is the baby sister going to like bread?" Oliver asked, patting his dough with serious concentration. Autumn smiled, one hand moving instinctively to her rounded belly, where their second child grew. At 4 months pregnant, she was finally beginning to show, much to Rex's delighted fascination. This pregnancy was different from her first. Wanted, celebrated, surrounded by love and support, rather than fear and uncertainty. "I think she'll love everything you make for her," Autumn replied, pressing a kiss to Oliver's dark hair. "You're going to be the best big brother. I'm going to teach her how to howl properly," Oliver declared, with the confident authority of someone who had recently mastered the skill himself. And how to catch rabbits. And how to make Papa laugh when he's being too serious about alpha stuff. The group of young pack members giggled at this assessment of their alpha king, though there was affection rather than disrespect in their amusement. Rex's happiness since claiming Autumn had transformed not just his personal life, but his leadership style. The stern, duty-bound ruler had given way to someone more approachable, more connected to his pack's daily lives. The kitchen door swung open, and Rex himself appeared as if summoned by their conversation. His golden eyes immediately found his family, the smile that crossed his face so full of love and contentment that it made Autumn's heart flutter just as it had 4 years ago. "Alpha King!" Several of the young pack members called out, showing their respect while clearly comfortable in his presence. "Good afternoon," Rex replied, making his way through the busy kitchen to reach his mate and son. He pressed a gentle kiss to Autumn's temple, then ruffled Oliver's hair. "How are my favorite bakers doing?" "We're making bread for dinner," Oliver announced proudly, holding up his admittedly lopsided creation. "And I only dropped dough on the floor twice today." "Excellent improvement from yesterday's 3 times," Rex said seriously, earning another giggle from the watching children. Autumn leaned into her mate's warmth, marveling at how natural this all felt. 6 months ago, she had been a kitchen servant hiding her identity and her son. Now she was Luna Queen, respected and beloved by the pack, carrying the next royal heir, watching her firstborn thrive under his father's guidance. "Mrs. Patterson brought news from the Eastern Territories," Rex murmured quietly in her ear. "Victoria was seen attempting to form alliances with the rogue packs along our borders. The reports suggest she's not adjusting well to exile." Autumn felt a flicker of concern, but it was quickly overwhelmed by confidence in Rex's ability to protect their family and pack. "Do you think she poses a real threat?" "Not anymore," Rex replied with certainty. "Without family backing or political connections, she's just another rogue making empty threats. The established packs won't risk their stability for someone who attacked a child in council chambers." Oliver looked up from his dough, his enhanced hearing having caught parts of their conversation despite their lowered voices. "Is the mean lady trying to be bad again?" "The mean lady is very far away," Rex assured his son, lifting him from his stool for a proper hug. "And she can never hurt our family again." "Good," Oliver said with satisfaction, then brightened. "Can we go see the horses after dinner? I want to show baby sister's tummy the new foal." The request made both parents smile. Oliver had developed an endearing habit of including his unborn sister in all his activities, talking to Autumn's belly as if the baby could hear and respond. According to Dr. Martinez, such behavior often indicated strong sibling bonds even before birth. "After dinner and after you finish your bread," Autumn negotiated, earning an enthusiastic nod from her son. The afternoon progressed in peaceful domestic rhythm. The bread was completed and set to rise. The young pack members dispersed to their own families, and the kitchen gradually quieted as dinner preparations began. Rex remained close by, sometimes helping with tasks, but mostly just enjoying the opportunity to watch his mate in her element. As evening approached and the pack gathered for their communal meal, Autumn found herself observing the scene with deep satisfaction. The great dining hall buzzed with conversation and laughter, families sharing food and stories, children playing between the tables while their parents watched with indulgent smiles. At the head table, Oliver regaled anyone who would listen with detailed plans for his baby sister's education in proper alpha behavior. His enthusiasm was infectious, and even the stern council elders found themselves charmed by the young prince's earnest preparations for big brotherhood. "You've created something beautiful here," Rex said quietly, his hand finding hers beneath the table. "We created it," Autumn corrected. "This sense of community, of belonging. It comes from the love you've shown not just me and Oliver, but everyone in the pack." Rex squeezed her fingers, his thumb tracing the mate mark on her wrist that had never faded since their ceremony. "Do you ever miss it? The quiet life, the anonymity?" Autumn considered the question seriously. There were indeed challenges to being Luna Queen. Public scrutiny, political responsibilities, the constant awareness that her every action reflected on the pack. But when she looked around the dining hall, when she felt the life growing within her, when she saw Oliver's uninhibited joy in his father's presence, the answer was clear. "Never," she said firmly. "This is where I belong. Where we belong." Later that evening, after Oliver had been tucked into bed with stories about brave little princes and their baby sisters. Rex and Autumn walked through their private gardens. The space had been redesigned since their mating, incorporating elements that reflected Autumn's love of growing things and creating beauty from simple ingredients. "I have something for you," Rex said, guiding her to a stone bench beneath a flowering apple tree. "Another gift?" "Rex, you spoil me enough already," Autumn protested, though her eyes sparkled with curiosity. "This is different. It's not just from me." Rex withdrew a small leather-bound book from his jacket. "The pack has been working on this for weeks." Autumn accepted the book with wondering hands, opening it to find page after page of handwritten recipes, cooking tips, and family food traditions. Each entry was signed by different pack members, creating a comprehensive collection of their community's culinary heritage. "They wanted you to have their family recipes," Rex explained. "The traditions passed down through generations, the dishes that make our pack unique. They wanted you to be the keeper of these traditions for future generations." Tears blurred Autumn's vision as she turned the pages, recognizing the handwriting of pack members young and old. Here was Mrs. Patterson's grandmother's stew recipe, the one that had sustained the pack through a harsh winter decades ago. There was young Tommy's mother's special birthday cake formula, the dessert that had become a pack tradition for celebrating children's milestones. "This is incredible," she whispered. "They're trusting me with their family histories. They're trusting you with who we are as a people," Rex corrected gently. "Food is how we connect, how we show love, how we maintain our bonds. By giving you their recipes, they're making you the heart of our cultural identity." The responsibility was both humbling and empowering. Autumn understood that she wasn't just being honored. She was being entrusted with preserving and nurturing the very essence of what made their pack special. "I won't let them down," she promised. "I know you won't. You've already proven that love and dedication matter more than bloodline or title." Rex pulled her closer, his hand resting on her growing belly. "Our children will grow up knowing they belong to something special, something worth protecting and preserving." Oliver's voice carried from his bedroom window above them, talking animatedly to someone, probably his stuffed wolf about the day's adventures and tomorrow's plans. The sound made both parents smile, a reminder of the miracle of the family they had built from secrets and second chances. "Rex," Autumn said softly, "tell me again how this all began, how we found each other again." Rex chuckled, understanding her need to hear the story that had become their family legend. "It all started with a masquerade ball, a mysterious woman in a silver mask, and a love too strong to stay hidden forever. And then a brave woman spent 4 years protecting our son, while finding the courage to trust in love again. Then an Alpha King discovered that the greatest treasures aren't always the ones you're looking for. Sometimes they're right in your kitchen, creating magic with flour and spices and boundless devotion." Autumn leaned against her mate's shoulder, feeling the steady beat of his heart, the warmth of his love, the absolute security of belonging. Above them, Oliver's voice had quieted to sleepy murmurs. Within her, their daughter moved gently, as if content in the peaceful atmosphere surrounding her family. "And they lived happily ever after?" Autumn prompted, completing their ritual retelling. "Forever and always," Rex confirmed, pressing a kiss to her hair. "With a pack house full of laughter, a kitchen that feeds not just bodies but souls, and enough love to last 1,000 lifetimes." In the distance, the pack house glowed with warm light, filled with families settling in for the night. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new responsibilities, new joys to share. But tonight, Alpha King Rex Coldridge and Luna Queen Autumn Coldridge sat in their garden with their children, born and unborn, and knew that they had found something rarer than any treasure, stronger than any political alliance, more precious than any crown. They had found home. They had found family. They had found forever. And it had all begun with the scent of love hidden in the perfect meal, cooked with hands that had never stopped hoping, and a heart that had never stopped believing in the power of true love to overcome any obstacle. The end,